Do you think cancer is entirely preventable?
Yes, absolutely. They say cancer is a genetic disease. It's a very complicated disease. That's bullshit. I have the science. I publish these papers in top medical journals. If people want to live, they'll know about it.
Professor Thomas Seyfried is a world-renowned expert in cancer and a best-selling author of Cancer as a Metabolic Disease.
He has a revolutionary treatment for cancer that even your doctor doesn't know.
We have 1,700 people a day dying in the United States from cancer, and we have people dying from cancer in all countries around the world. Yeah, you can have cancer, but if you know how to manage it, it doesn't become a death sentence.
Do you have success stories?
Yeah, well, we had Pablo Kelly.
My name is Pablo Kelly, and when I was about 24, I was diagnosed with a grade 4 glioblastoma multiforme brain tumor. I was given 6 to 9 months talking to the oncologist. I declined standard of care.
With 2.5 years of metabolic therapy, voila, the tumor was operable. And the same thing can be with breast cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer. They all can be managed quite effectively with metabolic therapy.
Do you think high-fat diets can actually kill cancer?
The high-fat diet is designed to keep your mitochondria healthy. If your mitochondria remain healthy, you're not going to get cancer. It's not like, oh, let me go out and eat a tub of lard. Let the GKI, the glucose ketone index, tell you what you can and cannot eat. And we know we kill cancer cells when we have a GKI 2.0 and below. Wait till the world knows about this. Everybody's going to be jumping on metabolic therapy. Where are you going?
This episode features Professor Thomas Seyfried, and we're discussing the new way to treat active cancer and even prevent it with a high-fat diet. Now, if you're learning from and enjoying these free episodes, please hit the subscribe button because we know that real food is medicine. And by the simple act of subscribing, you can help share the message to millions more people that need to hear the truth. And now for the episode with Professor Thomas Seyfried. Professor Seyfried, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. It's nice to be here.
When it comes to cancer, it puts the fear of impending death in most people's minds. Most people will think that if I get it, it's too late. There's nothing that I can do about it. But that is not true. So today, Professor Seyfried is going to share his 40 years of clinical experience and cancer research. We're going to talk about the true cause of cancer, why it's not genetic, and how to actually fix cancer with a high-fat diet. And that involves eating more bacon and more butter. So Professor Seyfried, my first question, if someone has just clicked on this video and they're thinking, how likely is it that I'm going to get cancer? How likely is it that someone's going to get cancer in their lifetime?
Well, it depends on how they live their life. Some people never get cancer. Doesn't happen to everybody. I mean, we have a lot of centurions that are over 100 years old that have never gotten cancer. Madame Clement, the oldest woman that ever existed on the planet, 122 years of age, drank wine and smoked cigarettes until she was 119. She never got cancer. So not everybody gets cancer. But I think what we're doing to ourselves today puts a lot of people at risk for cancer. I think that what we're seeing is a sedentary lifestyle where we're eating large amounts of highly processed carbohydrates. We're not exercising like we should, and we're under mental stress, emotional stress, poor sleep, loneliness, microchemicals, forever chemicals and microplastics. I think when you put all that together, we're seeing more and more younger people getting cancer for sure. And the number of people getting cancer is increasing, and the number of people dying from cancer is increasing. So yeah, it's not a good picture, and will not likely get better until people realize that cancer is a mitochondrial metabolic disease that can be easily managed by maintaining mitochondrial health, which is doing the opposite of all the things that I just said.
Absolutely. And that was a long list of people thinking, wow, I've got to do all of these things I have to fix. We're going to talk about them one by one, easy fixes. But I did read a quote saying that 1 in 2 men and 1 in 3 women will get cancer in their lifetime. Is it that much?
Well, I think if you abuse your body, it certainly could be. It's hard to get cancer. Cancer is very difficult to get. If you try to give cancer to mice or monkeys and things like this, it's very hard. There was one study where they used monkeys from South America. I think they were New World monkeys of some sort. And they try to give these monkeys cancer by rubbing carcinogen on their arms and having them eat it and drink it and feed it to them, and in 10 years, only one of the 50 monkeys got cancer, because they were in their own diet and lifestyle. The problem is that if you took the monkey and gave him all the highly processed crap that we eat, and then had a panther walk around his cage, putting the fear of God into him every day, freaking him out, no exercise, eating crap foods, the monkeys may have gotten pancreatic cancer, colon cancer. There's never been a documented case of breast cancer in a female chimpanzee, and they're almost the same genetically as we are. So what's the chimp doing that we're not doing? He's not eating the crap food that we eat. He's doing what he knows. You got to change these animals' behave. You got to put them in a radically different environment, and just give them what they love to eat, poorly nutritious foods in large quantities, right? So if you gave elephants don't get cancer. They haven't found elephants with cancer. But how many jelly donuts would you have to feed an elephant before he would get pancreatitis and pancreatic cancer? I mean, dozens and dozens, and he would love it. I mean, it wouldn't be like, oh, they would say, oh, don't do that. It's harmful to the elephant. Well, we're doing it to ourselves every day in almost every country. We're not exercising. We're eating crap food. It puts us at risk for not only cancer, it puts us at risk for all kinds of chronic diseases. So all these chronic diseases, cancer included, are all the result of dysfunctional mitochondria in the cell. The mitochondria, the energy generating organelle in our cells, becomes corrupted, leading to chronic diseases and cancer.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about the mitochondrial dysfunction, because many people think that when it comes to cancer, there's nothing that they can do about it. It is a fear of impending death in most people's minds. Do you think then that cancer is entirely preventable in most cases?
Yes, absolutely. Even Otto Warburg said that. Cancer is in our Paleolithic ancestors. Cancer was extremely rare. How do we know? Because we have people that live in tribes and according to traditional ways, and cancer was extremely rare when these people were evaluated for cancer. You had different physicians and humanitarians that would go around and look at Inuit populations, African populations, when they were living according to their ways. Albert Schweitzer certainly did look for cancer among African tribes. He didn't find any. Very rare. He even looked for thousands. He goes, what's weird? What's going on? As soon as the great Western diet and lifestyle enter into the society, you get all kinds of cancers, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity. You get all the great wonders of our technological advances in food technology. Yeah. And you have to do that. You have to abuse your body doing this for decades. You don't usually, eat a pizza and the next day wake up with a big tumor on your colon. It's usually an abusive series of behaviors, all culminating together with chemicals in the environment, all culminating in some form of dysregulated cell growth, which is cancer in some organ of the body.
So let's talk about how cancer develops in the body, because you're saying it's over decades. It's not overnight. It's not like you eat a pizza and you get a tumor the next day. So, um, because I think people don't understand this in terms of what is cancer in terms of cell growth in the body? What's happening?
Well, I mean, we published this in many papers. The definition of the disorder is called cell division out of control. Okay. Well, the cells in your liver, kidney, colon, spleen, breast, brain, they're all there. They're all doing their metabolically designed, metabolically homeostatic condition. What would make one of these cells start to grow in a dysregulated way? And that we have clearly shown that it is chronic disruption of the ability of the cell to use oxygen to obtain energy.
If you want to learn how to implement the ketogenic diet and the Press Pulse protocol into your cancer management, just visit school.com/keto for cancer, the new community by our research analyst Johnny Rockermeyer. Within this new community platform, you can connect with other patients and learn from their experiences. You can also just search through the posts other members have already made. have access to our classroom section as well, which provides practical advice and tools for the best results. These sections cover all parts of the Press Pulse protocol that you should implement. Starting with the general scientific concepts by Dr. Thomas Seyfried, we will show you how to start the ketogenic diet, including which foods to choose and which to avoid. Additionally, we prepared a list of doctors specialized in metabolic therapy, as well as details about glutamine inhibition and hyperbaric oxygen protocols. So, take a look around at school.com/keto for cancer.
So one of the differences between a cancer cell and a normal cell, non-cancerous cell, is the way the cell uses energy. All of the cells in our body, with the exception of erythrocytes and perhaps a few others, we breathe energy, we breathe oxygen, and the oxygen serves as an acceptor for electrons through the mitochondrial electron transport chain in the organelle called the mitochondria. And we can generate tremendous amounts of energy because without energy, nothing can survive. So energy then becomes the key feature of life. Interestingly enough, all of our cells, for the most part, are using oxygen to generate energy. In cancer, the oxygen that is consumed by the cancer cell is not used for producing sufficient energy from oxidative phosphorylation. It actually produces reactive oxygen species, ROS, which are carcinogenic and mutagenic. So the cancer cell is throwing out reactive carcinogens and mutagens that damage other parts of the cell, causing mutations in the nucleus, of course. Many cancer cells have mutations in the nucleus, but these are not the cause. These are the effects of the disturbed energy metabolism in the mitochondria. And the fuel that's driving the dysregulated growth now becomes fuels that don't need oxygen. So that's called fermentation, energy without oxygen. And the two fuels that we and others have identified are the sugar glucose and the amino acid glutamine, which is a very highly abundant amino acid in our bloodstream. Our big finding and discovery to clear up the mess was that this amino acid can also be fermented, can also generate energy in the absence of oxygen in the organelle, this mitochondria. So this was it's a big discovery, but a lot of people simply can't understand it yet, because they look at the mitochondria and they say, "Oh, look at all the ATP coming out of there. It's taking in oxygen and energy called ATP is coming out." And they say, "See, it's perfectly similar to a normal cell." But the issue is the normal cell is using the oxygen to make ATP. The cancer cell is using the oxygen to make carcinogens and mutagens, and they're using other fuels to ferment, which is energy without oxygen. And the waste products of fermentation are lactic acid and succinic acid, and the cancer cell is dumping those out, clearly telling us in no uncertain terms what it is doing to stay alive. So we know that, and they grow in the absence of oxygen. So clearly, cancer cells do not use oxygen where normal cells use oxygen. So that tells us the foundational difference between a cancer cell and a normal cell, and they can't grow without the glucose glutamine, and they can't switch to fatty acids or ketone bodies like normal cells can. So the whole cancer thing is extremely simple in how to kill cancer and manage cancer, to both prevent and manage it. So why does the field not know this, and why do they not act upon it? And there's a lot of reasons for that. And one of the reasons is they think cancer is a genetic disease. So they keep chasing mutations and hunting and trying to target mutations or the effects of mutations, which are mostly irrelevant. And as the result of chasing and targeting things that are not relevant to the disease, we have 1,700 people a day dying in the United States from cancer, which is 70 an hour. And we have people dying from cancer in all countries around the world in high numbers. And none of these people, none of these studies are targeting the glucose and glutamine to stop the proliferation of these dysregulated cells and transitioning the body to fatty acids and ketones while you're simultaneously targeting the fermentable fuels. You can go to any oncology clinic in the world and describe what I just said, and they look at you like a deer in the headlight. They have no clue. They've never heard what I said. And then if they want to act upon this, the standard of care prevents them from acting upon this, which is the change of radiation and chemo and a lot of the crazy things they're doing to these people. They say, well, geez, why don't we just target glucose and glutamine while transitioning the body to nutritional ketosis? Oh, no, we can't do that. I said, why? Well, we haven't heard why. We'd have heard something about, no, you're not going to hear anything. In medical school, you're told the cancer is a genetic disease. Therefore, you have to do immunotherapies and all these other kinds of things. And one of the things that's really remarkable, how come we don't make any advance? Well, it's hard to make an advance when the entire world thinks it's something other than what it is. Um, and that explains why no country, whether it's Australia, England, Germany, France, the UK, United States, China, we're all doing the same thing. You go there and everywhere they use, we have to surgically debulk, we have to give you poisonous chemicals and radiation and immunotherapies or something like this. And a lot of people are killed by the treatments. And a lot of people, if they do survive the treatment, they're damaged in many different ways. Their organs are damaged from radiation. And radiation is not healthy. Let me tell you, it's not a healthy way to get, no one goes out and gets nuked or poisoned to become healthy. And yet we're doing this to people with cancer. It's nuts. Doesn't make any sense. And they don't make any sense because if you go to the National Institutes of Health, they say cancer is a genetic disease. It's a very complicated disease. Hundreds of different kinds of cats. Bullshit. They're all the same. We showed that. Every major cancer is dependent on glucose and glutamine and can't burn fatty acids or ketone bodies. They're all the same. Colon, breast cancer, and they're all basically have the same metabolic problem.
That was my next question. So when it comes to breast cancer, prostate cancer, brain cancer, are they all one in the same conditions?
Yeah, they all have dysfunctional mitochondria and are dependent on a fermentation metabolism to grow. So, and they acidify the microenvironment with the waste products of the fermentation metabolism. It's over and over again. Every major cancer has insufficient oxidative phosphorylation coupled to substrate level phos, which is the scientific terminology that I'm using. Oxidative phosphorylation replaced largely by substrate level phosphorylation. This is an ancient pathway of energy before oxygen came into the atmosphere 2.5 billion years ago. All the cells that existed on the planet were fermenters. These cancer cells are simply falling back on these ancient pathways that are driven by glucose and glutamine to get energy. So we have clearly defined the fuels driving the dysregulated growth. And what you do is you target those fuels because the normal cells in the body can transition over to fatty acids and ketone bodies, and the tumor cells can't because their mitochondria are dysfunctional. How is that so complicated? But I might as well be speaking in hieroglyphics or drawing things because nobody can seem to understand it, except when the people start using this therapy to manage their cancer. And the doctors are always miffed. Oh, I didn't know you were going to survive so long. Oh, what are you doing? And then when you tell them what they're doing, a lot of times the physicians say, I don't know what you're doing, but just keep doing it.
As Professor Seyfried mentions, the most effective way to treat active cancer and even prevent it is through metabolic therapy. And that involves lowering the carbohydrates and increasing your healthy fats. And later in the episode, we'll discuss the easy way that you can know that your glucose is low enough and your healthy fats and your ketones are high enough so that you achieve therapeutic ketosis. And that's using what's called the GKI index. Now, as you make this switch to lowering the carbohydrates and increasing your healthy fats, you might experience some side effects like headache, nausea, and fatigue. Now, all this is very normal, especially at the beginning. So what you can do is salt your meals and salt your water. But if the symptoms still persist, I would highly recommend you lean on a high quality electrolyte, one that has sodium, potassium, and magnesium, because this is so important for proper brain and body function. And that is why I have Element as a sponsor of today's video. I personally like to use a high quality supplement like Element because it has a science-backed mix of sodium, potassium, and magnesium without anything artificial and no preservatives. Now, Element has a wide variety of flavors to choose from, but I like the raw unflavored. I pop half a sachet in my morning coffee, and the other half I sprinkle it in my water during the day. And right now, Element is offering my viewers this free sample pack on every order. So you're going to get 8 single servings of Element to try for free. So if you want this, just head to drinkelement.com/the Primal Podcast. So do you have a success story? Because you mentioned one in Greece more recently around people doing, this is called metabolic therapy to treat cancer. Do you have success stories?
Yeah, well, we had Pablo Kelly, who passed away. He was a glioblastoma patient who was initially diagnosed with an inoperable glioblastoma in 2014. And he reached out to me, and he didn't want any surgery at first, radiation or chemo, just did metabolic therapy. And his tumor, well, they were surprised. It didn't grow very fast. It started to slow down. And then after 2.5 years, he had it cut out, debulked. And then he thought he was free of the cancer. But it never got completely out, and it started to grow again, but very, very slowly. And he had it debulked a second time. And then after several more years, he had it debulked a third time, never taking radiation or chemo. And then we spoke to him a week before he died, and we were laughing at the fact that he had 3 debulking surgeries to move what was originally described as an inoperable tumor. So we were laughing about that. How you have you're diagnosed with an inoperable tumor that was going to kill you in 9 months if you did not have radiation and chemo, because the tumor could not be operated on. But with 2.5 years of metabolic therapy, voila, the tumor was operable, cut out, but it grew back. So he was never cured. But he, on the 4th debulking surgery, which was a week after we spoke to him, he was in good spirits. He got married, had 2 children since the original diagnosis. So he died in 2024, last Labor Day, I guess, last September, from a cerebral hemorrhage as the result of a 4th debulking surgery. He died 12 hours after the cerebral hemorrhage. If he didn't have that last debulking surgery, which was only to get rid of some tiny residual piece, he probably would have been still alive with us today. But 10 years with a glioblastoma is unheard of. People say, well, he's only a fluke, an N of 1. Oh, yeah, well, why don't you see if we can get more? Oh, no, we have to do radiation and chemo. Well, that's what he didn't do. That's what he did not do. But our recent paper out of Greece, now that's a bigger study because that used 18 people, half of whom did a Mediterranean, calorie-restricted Mediterranean diet. But they were irradiated, and they did have temozolomide. They did have standard of care, which itself puts the patient at incredible risk for death. But they were unable to convince the Institutional Review Board not to irradiate and use poisonous chemicals. So they had to do that because it's locked, like it's written in granite everywhere. So anyway, they did use a calorie, according to our procedures, the glucose ketone index calculator, and they used a calorie restricted Mediterranean ketogenic diet, which is and published, just came out, so you can read it in Frontiers in Nutrition. And of the people that maintained, and the diet wasn't bad. It was sardines and salmon, olive oil, and some avocado, and maybe some other stuff, but not unpalatable for sure. And 8 people followed that, and 6 people, followed that, and 10 people didn't. And the reason why they didn't follow it, it was like pressure from the family, and some people felt that they already had radiation and chemo, they didn't want to do a diet. But anyway, the guys that followed the diet, um, 4 of the 6 survived beyond 3 years. And the guys who didn't do the diet, only 1 survived to 3 years. So clearly a striking difference in overall survival doing metabolic therapy. And that was with standard of care. Now, my hypothesis, and I've told the oncology world, prove me wrong. I said, if you didn't do radiation and toxic poison. Surgery for sure. We don't rule that out. We can shrink down those tumors if we have a watchful waiting period, and then the surgeon will debulk or take out a much greater part of the tumor and then transition the people back over to metabolic therapy like Pablo Kelly. But now we know we can target glutamine with parasite medications, which makes it even more powerful. So we think we can keep cancer patients alive 2, 3, 4 times longer without toxicity. Brain cancer, glioblastoma patients, much longer at a much higher quality of life. But nobody wants to touch that with a 10-foot pole. They want to stick to the crazy stuff they've been doing for 100 years. We haven't made any advance in glioblastoma in 100 years. And we want to move them forward. We want to move it forward, but there's a lot of reasons why, and a lot of it has nothing to do with the science. The science tells us exactly what to do. The tumor cells are telling us exactly what they're doing to stay alive, and they're telling us that if we do this and that, we will kill them. But what the tumor cells are telling us seems to fall on the deaf ears of the establishment. They want to continue to do the stuff they've been doing for decades without any major advance. And we're saying, no, we can keep these guys alive a lot longer. And the same thing can be with breast cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer. They all can be managed quite effectively with metabolic therapy. But what we do is we do horrible things to people. We poison and irradiate them to make them healthy. And a lot of times this doesn't work. And the new immunotherapies, Keytruda, Opdivo, Avastin, all these kinds of things, they're not working to a great extent. Yes, they are working on some people. I don't want to say that they're not working. You do get about 20% of people that do really well. Then you get 60% of people where doesn't do anything. But then there's a term called hyperprogressive disease, where the therapy will kill you before the cancer. It's called hyperprogressive disease. And you get about 16 to 20% of these folks. So, why would you treat anyone with a remote chance that it will kill you? But what's another thing which we're finding is if you do metabolic therapy, the standard of care can do better as well. So, and that's what the Greek study was telling us. But if we didn't do standard of care, or we used modified parts of the standard of care, we can keep people alive so much longer, especially when they're first diagnosed. A lot of people come to me after they've been brutalized by the system and say, I want to do metabolic therapy. Well, they're gaunt. They look like death warmed over. They're all bald. And I mean, man, it's tough to bring somebody back from that kind of abuse. But when you're first diagnosed, usually you're pretty healthy in a lot of cases. You're not so bad off. You do really remarkably well when you institute metabolic therapy up front. And then if you need radiation and chemo, you can always do that. Nobody's preventing you, but why would you do it up front? Make yourself brutalized make your body unhealthy by poison and radiation are not healthy for the body.
Because people, they don't know about this metabolic therapy.
Well, they're learning. I can tell you right now, a lot of people know about it, but when they go to their professionals, even in Australia, I can tell you a lot of times, New Zealand, Australia, they get slapped down. They say, oh, there's no evidence to support. Wait, don't these people read? No, they don't read the scientific literature. And they either don't read it or don't understand it. They have to wait to be told. It's not like they have any ability to say, I want to do metabolic therapy. And then the system says, well, you can't do that. You must do standard of care. Oh, well, that prevents even the good physician that understands the science can't even do it. So the system has to be gutted. This system is not working for us. And who controls the system? The hospitals? The pharmaceutical companies? I don't know. You figure it out. All I know is people want to live, and the system is preventing them from doing that. And if those who live pay a price, your bones are you have bone problem, bone density problems, you have emotional stress, you have cardiovascular problems, you have all kinds of new ailments for the fact that you survived toxic poison and radiation or surgical mutilation. The whole system has to be revamped and changed if people want to live and they want to get on with their lives. Yeah, you can have cancer, but if you know how to manage it, it doesn't become a death sentence. You can take the fear and the anxiety out of this disease very easily. But that's not being conveyed. That information is not. I have the science. I published these papers in top medical journals, and there it is, laid out in front of you. It's just, I mean, what am I going to do? Jam it down your throat? I mean, what do we do here? But if people want to live, they'll know about it.
So, do you think that the metabolic therapy can actually save people that have existing cancer and it can prevent cancer entirely?
Oh, absolutely, prevent. You can't get cancer if your mitochondria are healthy. Don't forget our Paleolithic ancestors. Now, who wants to go back and live in a cave, right? You want to go back and, eat. What do you guys eat down there? Koala bears and kangaroos and that kind of stuff. I mean, you got a koala bear running through your backyard. Oh, he's dinner tonight. You know,
It's not that bad here in Australia. Come on. I mean, it's actually, people think that about Australia, that we've got kangaroos just jumping outside our backyard, but you actually have to go to the outback to see the kangaroos.
we then bring him in town, bring him on the streets of Sydney. Yeah, yeah. Wrestle them down. That's dinner for tonight, right? I mean, you think of the people that lived in Australia before the Irish came there and all these others. They were Aboriginal folks. What did they eat? How much cancer did those guys get? How much diabetes? How many morbidly obese Aboriginal folks did you ever see living in the outback and wherever? Um, when you look at those kinds of folks, they were lean. They were chiseled. They had a lot of exercise. They weren't eating. Now you take those same folks and give them the great Western diet and lifestyle, and they got cancer, diabetes, obesity. They got all the stuff that the rest of us have. So it's clearly diet and lifestyle. And the gene mutations that people say, "Oh, I got BRCA1." We have a big paper ready to launch. Every one of those genetic risk factors are what we call a risk factor that initiates dysregulated cell growth because it impacts the mitochondria directly. So we know what causes cancer, and we can reduce the risk massively, but we have to change our diet and lifestyle. And some people would say, I'm going to roll the dice. It's like a guy who smokes. Oh, I like smoking. I don't know if I'll ever get lung cancer. I might get emphysema, but I like smoking. Okay, well, we're never going to take away pizzas and jelly donuts and all kinds of highly processed carbs from people. We just want to let them know that if you eat that, you put yourself at risk for cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, hypertension, dementia, all these kinds of things. They just don't know that right now. But we offer a plan using the glucose ketone index calculator as a tool to know whether or not you're in a zone of risk for cancer and chronic diseases, and what you can do to get out of that zone into a healthier zone, all quantitative, which then becomes everybody's personal choice to determine whether or not they want to live in a risky zone or a healthy zone.
Let's talk about the solution then, getting into this metabolic therapy so that we understand the theory around. You're saying that basically cells, so the mitochondria gets dysfunctional, and then the cells rely on an energy which is called fermentation, which relies on glutamine and glucose for energy, and it's anaerobic, so it's not using oxygen for energy. And that's how cancer cells multiply and get worse. Is that kind of the good summary around that?
Yeah, and as they get worse and worse, they acidify the microenvironment, making because their waste products are acid, and that causes a much greater amount of inflammation. So you have abnormal blood vessels, the immune system comes in, and the immune system then throws out growth factors and cytokines, which makes a bad situation much worse um, to this. And then, of course, when the cancer cells spread, which is called metastasis or metastasis, um, we have clearly shown what the biology of the metastatic cell is. An immune cell. It's a macrophage, part of our immune system itself. So once we took us 10 years to figure this out, and the cancer field still thinks all cancer, these metastatic cells are stem cells. I can't go into the absurdity of how the cancer field looks at metastasis and looks at all this stuff. It's all based on gene think, silo gene think. And when you do that, you're lost. You're a lost soul. You're a lost scientist. We have clearly shown that these metastatic cells are hybrid cells of macrophages, which is a very powerful cell in our body to kill bacteria. And they're already programmed to move through lymph nodes. They're already programmed to enter and exit the bloodstream. And we already know that they're highly glutamine dependent. So we know how to kill them. At the same time, we know that the immune cells, the normal immune cells, need and use the same fuel as the tumor cell. So you can't be too aggressive in knowing, well, yes, we'll kill a lot of tumor cells, but if we don't use the tool correctly, we'll damage our own immune system, preventing our immune system from picking up the dead corpses from the metabolic therapy. So I guess the difficulty, which makes it a little bit more complicated and not as simple as I've made it. To me, it's remarkably simple, but we have to be sure that people know biology, and they need to know the difference between the biology of immune cell and the biology of a non-immune cell, and the biology of a cancer cell versus the biology of these different cells. So it's a biological problem, and it's how the cells get energy, what the biology of the cell is, and once you know that, this cancer problem becomes very manageable.
So to simplify it in a way, it's targeting two things: glucose, which is what the cancer cells feed off, and then also a glutamine. I want to discuss both so that people, even at home, they can do things to prevent cancer with what they eat and their lifestyle, focusing on the glucose part. So we'll talk about the ketogenic diet and ketones and the GKI index in a second. But I want to ask you about glutamine because that's a non-essential amino acid. So the body uses that. So how does that feed cancer?
Well, an essential fuel for cancer. You can't grow without it. The glutamine is given nitrogen, so the glucose gives the carbons, and the glutamine gives carbons and nitrogen, and both of them give energy, ATP. So the glutamine is you can't grow and make new DNA and RNA and proteins without a nitrogen source. So the glutamine provides the cancer cell with the nitrogen source. And the cancer is taking in glucose in large amounts. And those are the carbons for making fatty acids and nucleic acids. So there's a huge, powerful synergy between the carbons from glucose and the carbons and nitrogen from glutamine. They are powerful synergistic fuels. So, but you can lower glucose with diet and lifestyle issues. But glutamine requires targeting. You can also lower some glutamine with great exercise. Exercise, which is another absolute necessity for managing cancer, is the exercise part. The exercise sucks the glucose out of the blood for the muscles, lowering blood sugar further, but also can lower glutamine. So, and then you come in with a small amount of glutamine targeting drugs, pulsing. That's why we developed the press pulse strategy. You can press glucose down, but you can't press glutamine because it's absolutely essential for our gut, our immune system, the urea cycles, and this kind of thing. So you really have to be strategic when you're targeting glutamine. You just can't choke hold glutamine because it's so essential for so many other things. So you pulse it. That's dosage, timing, and scheduling. You choke hold the glucose with the diet lifestyle, and you come in with parasite drugs and other drugs that will target the glutamine and the glucose together. And you exercise. You do a lot of exercise.
Okay, what's the exercise that you would recommend to target the glutamine?
I would say that most exercise, swimming, running, walking, depending on what age you are, you're not going to get a 90-year-old guy to run a marathon. But he can certainly walk around if he's still able to do that. Whereas younger people can be, doing more walking, weightlifting, and all this kind of stuff. Because the more activity you give your muscles, the more breathing you have, you make your mitochondria healthy. You're sucking the glucose and the glutamine out of the system, and then you come in with strategic targeting of these processes. And these cancer cells get hammered. They can't handle it. And then people say, "Oh, they're versatile." No, they're not versatile. We interrogated these damn cells. They are absolutely dependent on this fuel. And the reason why they look so hard, they look so great, because when you take radiation and toxic poisons, you free up the two fuels driving these cancer cells. So the fuels, what we're doing to the cancer patients, are allowing the cells to have the very fuels they need to grow. So and that's why it's not effective for so many people. Yeah, you can keep these things at bay if you incinerate a whole region of your tissue with a radiation and poison somebody where they're vomiting and diarrhea, fatigue. I mean, this is causing stress on the tumor cell, but it's stress on the body too. Uh, Ketogenic metabolic therapy makes the normal cells in your body super healthy because you're burning ketones. You're not allowing them to be poisoned. But the tumor cells can't make those switches. They're locked into a fermentation metabolism. This is unbelievable. Wait till the world knows about this. Everybody's going to be jumping on metabolic therapy. Where are you going?
Well, let's talk about the metabolic therapy and what we can do at home, which is a high fat ketogenic diet. Do you think high fat diets can actually kill cancer, prevent it at the comfort in your own home?
The high fat diet is designed to keep your mitochondria healthy. If your mitochondria remain healthy, you're not going to get cancer. It's just that simple. So you burn ketones, and it's not like, oh, let me go out and eat a tub of lard. Don't forget what our ancestors did when they killed big animals. They would go for the marrow. The marrow had a lot of the bone marrow has fat in it, so they would get the fat, and they would eat organ meat. Organ meat had a lot of glucose in it because the liver stores in glycogen. So we were getting all of our nutrients from organ meat and from bone marrow. Our ancestors knew what to do. What killed our ancestors, as I said before, was injuries and infections. They did not have antibiotics, and they didn't have orthopedic surgeons that could fix broken bones and heal flesh and this kind of stuff. So they died from infections and injuries. Um, we don't die too much from infections and injuries today. Well, I should say there's MRSA in the hospitals, which is kind of a sepsis that can kill you real quick. But they're antibiotic resistant bacteria, of course, and that still will kill people. In mostly in hospitals, if you can believe it. But we can manage some of these injuries and infections, but now we're dying from chronic diseases. We're dying from type 2 the complications of diabetes, cancer, hypertension, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease. These are all conditions of energy abuse, mitochondrial disturbance. In some cases, in order to get cancer, not only do you have to damage and abuse the mitochondria, you have to do it in a cell that is capable of upregulating the fermentation machinery to replace the oxygen from respiration. Otherwise, you can't get cancer. And the evidence for that comes from neurons in the brain and cardiac myocytes in healthy people. They rarely, if ever, get cancer because neurons cannot switch to fermentation, nor can cardiac myocytes. They can't switch. So you never see cancer in these kinds of cells. Whereas other cells, liver cells, colon cells, breast cells, these are all can be switched to fermentation. So but it's very clear when you know the biology of what's going on.
So, can you explain the role of being in ketosis? And this is therapeutic ketosis to not get cancer because it's not just about ketones, it's about therapeutic ketosis. Can you explain that, please?
Yeah, well, therapeutic ketosis is when your blood sugar is down and your ketones are up. And our ancestors, our Paleolithic ancestors, were always in a semi-state of nutritional ketosis. They did not have highly processed carbohydrates in the environment. They're eating kangaroos and wallabies and those kinds of things, right? Whatever they ate there in Australia, and we killed buffaloes, and wherever we were, we ate what was available for us. Well, you're not going to get type 2 diabetes eating buffalo meat, right? Because we have a hormone called cholecystokinin, which suppresses appetite when fats come into the environment. But when you eat sugars, you suppress cholecystokinin and you keep eating and eating. Glucose is an addictive molecule. It makes you hungry even when you're not hungry. So it makes you eat even when you know you're full. You eat a great big meal of buffalo meat, and then somebody comes out with a cheesecake, and you're going to eat the cheesecake too, right? I mean, this is all based on physiology. But our ancestors didn't have this. They were very active, so they had a lot of activity and hunter gathering. I mean, you can only sit on your ass for so long before you have to go out and get something to eat. And to kill an animal and chop it up and butcher it and cook it takes a lot of energy. You have to collect water from the stream. You're always moving. You're always doing something. Otherwise, you're going to starve to death. And then when you ate as much as you possibly could, but it wasn't highly processed carbohydrates. Um, and we probably slept better. We had a lot of exercise, and we were in a state of nutritional ketosis, not by choice, but by situation. And as soon as our technology came into place where we could cultivate grains during the Neolithic period, we could get more carbohydrates from rice, wheat, corn, these kinds of grains that brought more carbs into our diet. And then eventually we could process the carbs to make them more and more sweet and less nutritious. Of course, we get civilization around food sources. Otherwise, we'd all still be trying to kill kangaroos and buffaloes. But now we farm these things. We have farms for the animals, and we can provide the food for us. Now today on the world, we have more obese people than we have starving people. Go figure this one out. So, and these obese people are mostly suffering from all kinds of chronic diseases, and cancer is being one of the big ones. So we're still biologically Paleolithic man. We're just in a totally different kind of environment than what we evolved to be in, and now our science and technology has evolved much faster than our biology. And as a result, we are morbidly obese, we're chronically diseased, cancer ridden, dementia ridden, and younger and younger people are falling into the cancer and some of these chronic diseases, diabetes in little kids, cancer in little kids, young people. I've seen so many in the late 20s now, in the mid 30s, early 40s, cancer going on, colon cancer, breast cancer, brain cancer, bladder cancer. So what the hell is going on? It's all, and then of course we got all the microplastics and forever chemicals, and we know all of these will chronically damage mitochondria. So we know I know what pretty much is going on here, but we're tormented and tempted by advertisements on television and billboards with all these delicious foods. And we love them. Are you kidding me? I mean, you eat this stuff, I told you when I eat, I get all excited, man. It's just like unbelievable. Eat a big pizza, you know.
I want to talk about okay, but I do want to give people specifics around what foods they should really like focus on because there's so many different diets out there. But if we can understand what foods we should eat entirely, that's going to help prevent cancer. And even people that have existing cancer, it's going to manage their condition along with they could see you for the metabolic therapy. I have a list of foods here, and I want to get your opinion.
Well, listen, I just let the GKI, the glucose ketone index, tell you what you can and cannot eat. So each person should be their own experimental subject. So you take your list of foods and what could your glucose ketone index, which we published. It's a little meter now, Ketomojo. You can go on Amazon, you can buy it. Everybody pricks their finger, gets a drop of blood, takes the glucose strip, and you get the glucose reading, and then you take the ketone strip and get the ketone reading, and then you'll be able to know what zone you're in, what glucose ketone index zone. So the foods that you're going to list might Australians might not respond the same way as a German or an Englishman or an Asian. So we don't know until that everybody measures their GKI and see what it does to their GKI. We have this big thing now where you're in unhealthy zones, trial and error zones, and super healthy zones. And we know we kill cancer cells when we have a GKI 2.0 and below. So people say, well, I'm going to run out and get a 2.0. Oh, yeah? Let's see how easy it is. It's not easy. You can't eat any of those foods you're going to tell me. You have to do a lot of exercise. And okay, give me one of the foods. Give me one of the foods.
Okay, high fat meats.
High fat meats. Well, again, that's probably not going to spike your glucose.
And it's going to improve your ketones.
Depends on how much you eat. Don't eat much of it. You get very healthy if you can just eat like some grams of it.
Okay, what about butter?
Butter. Well, yeah, okay, let's sit down and eat a kilo of butter, right? It ain't going to happen. Of course, a little bit's not going to kill you, right? None of this stuff is going to hurt you in small amounts. It's only when you start, you know, pounding down big amounts of this stuff. But yes, a big ribeye steak or a piece of liver, these kinds of things in small amounts. You throw some bacon on top of the liver, cook the bacon and liver together in the same. Uh, yeah, these are all pretty good as long as you don't overdo it. Now, then we have to have a big ass potato with a lot of bread. Okay, then we throw ourselves out of the glucose ketone in. But everybody likes that, right? Got to have a big piece of bread with butter and lather it on the butter, and you dip it into the juices of the steak, the juices of the fatty steak. That throws you out.
It sounds like you've seen a lot of people in person, so you know their behavioral traits and you know their habits.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's because the bread and the butter, I mean, we love it. It's very tasty. It's got full of carbs, very tasty. But if you ate the butter without the bread, it would be better than eating the bread with the butter. Um, but also you can eat bread. But I mean, we love bread. I'm not going to stop eating bread.
But the thing is, for somebody that has active cancer, I'm just saying, or somebody that really wants to prevent cancer, what I'm trying to say is if you eat some of these foods, high fat meat, some butter, some, even olive oil, or like things that don't have the sugars and the carbohydrates, you're really going to prevent yourself from having cancer.
Prevention for sure. Once you have cancer, you can also manage it that way. But how many people are going to say, I'm not going to ever eat a pizza or a piece of bread with butter on it because I want to prevent cancer? Give me a break. It's just like the guy who smokes the cigarette. I'm not going to get lung cancer. I'll take the risk. Okay, some guy sitting there with a big, beautiful baked baguette, got a nice piece of butter on it. I said, oh, I don't know if I should do that. It might give me colon cancer. He's going to eat it. You kidding me? He's going to eat it.
What if it's once in a while, though, that people are having these occasional foods? That's okay then.
I think the exercise comes in as a real issue here. I think if you're actively exercising regularly, they call it an opportunity to exercise, a half an hour for an hour a day in a cardiovascular exercise, significantly reduces the risk from eating the bread and the butter. Or other potentially harmful foods. Everything is in balance. But we're a species that are absolutely imbalanced. We're compulsive, right? Everybody's compulsive with one thing or another. They binge eat and then they don't eat. It's like they binge drink and then they don't drink. So it's a balance thing. But we're not telling anybody they can't binge eat or binge drink or whatever, as long as they can maintain a generally good exercise and a GKI that's not too whacked out. We see GKIs 50 and above. Sometimes we see really high GKIs, whereas you're like a diabetic with, 300 milligram per deciliter with almost no ketones. I mean, his GKI is like 800, something like this. So, we'll do the calculation. I'd have to sit here and do the calculation. You have to convert the glucose to millimolar, and you divide it by 18. So you'd have to divide 300 by 18, let me see. So you'd have 300. That would be 300 milligram per deciliter, which is pretty high. That's like a diabetic, right? Divided by 1.8 equals, so that's 16 by 6. That's what is 16 millimolar divided by 0.01. Okay, that gives you a GKI of 1,600 GKI. And to kill cancer cells, you need 2.0 below. So you can get an idea of how whacked out your GKI can be in these very unhealthy states. So we're saying anything above 50 it becomes on a regular basis, not on an occasional. Because if we're in a healthy zone and we're going to go out and eat the big cheesecake with chocolate syrup on it, or a deep fried Twinkie with powdered sugar on it, you're going to spike your GKI, but it's only going to be there for a short period of time before you can back level back down. But the poor diabetic who has 300 milligram per deciliter with zero ketones in his body, his GKI is going to be really, really high, very unhealthy. And then you see, he has what else does he have behind diabetes? Oh, he's morbidly obese. Oh, he's got high blood pressure. Oh, I mean, well, of course, you're putting it all together now, and then you say, well, look at what's my GKI? Well, it's like 500 or 600. Well, that tells you why you're in that zone. You shouldn't be in that zone. So what the GKI is a hard quantitative measure to allow a person, any person in any culture, any religion, any gender, to know whether or not they choose to stay in an unhealthy zone or choose to enter into these healthy zones. And then they can personally determine how long they want to maintain these zones. But the issue is they don't. Right now, there is no quantitative biomarker tool that can do that except the glucose ketone index. And that's going to be the tool that people in the world will use to determine whether or not they're in various kinds of zones of health or zones that will put them at risk for chronic disease and cancer.
It's pretty easy as well because you can use the Ketomojo, and you mentioned that they put a button on there to test the GKI index. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's just the ratio of blood sugar to ketones. The problem is the meters read sugar in milligrams per deciliter, and that has to be converted to millimolar. So the Mojo does it all for you. You have a little strip of, now here's the situation. Right now, you have to take a drop of blood from the tip of your finger, and you get, okay, that gives you the glucose. You put it in the meter, it reads the glucose. Then you squeeze your finger a little bit more, take a ketone strip and touch your drop, and then put that into the meter, and then it will give you the ketones. And then you push the button on the meter, and it gives you the ratio, which is the GKI. So you're right, you know right away. But you see, our technology is advancing rather rapidly. And we have a free Libra blood glucose constant monitor that you can put on your arm. Once the monitor comes out that you can measure both glucose and ketones, and it will do all the conversions for you, then you can go on your cell phone, and at any given time, you're going to see your GKI while you're eating the donut, while you're eating the pizza, or while you're eating the kangaroo.
Hopefully, people are eating more of the kangaroo than the donut. So when people want to prevent the cancer or even fix existing cancer, so following a high-fat ketogenic approach as much as they can, don't have the donuts and don't have the pizza. Also exercising, but I do want to touch upon water fasting. That is a protocol in metabolic therapy. Why does that help?
Well, that throws you down. That brings your GKI down much further. So this is one of the strategies that we just published in our big cancer treatment protocol with many authors, physicians, scientists, nutrition, dietitians, and the whole group that understand the concepts. Um, because a lot of people cannot go cold turkey with water only fasting. It is very hard. You're addicted to glucose. It's like, how easy is it if you're an alcoholic? How easy is it to all of a sudden go cold turkey on the drink? Not easy. If you're a heavy smoker, how easy is it to stop smoking? Not easy. If you're a drug addict, you're hooked on heroin or cocaine, you can't wake up and say, I don't want it today. You're addicted, and glucose is a powerful addiction to the brain. You don't believe me? Okay, uh, uh, don't eat now for the next 3 days, and you'll see how powerful that glucose addiction is. So one way to break that is to just go for a week or 10 days on a very low carbohydrate diet, and you can down lower the carbohydrates as you go through, because you'll even eating a very low carbohydrate diet with whether it's carnivore or whatever, a pescatarian, Mediterranean, a very low carb, your body will slowly adjust because we're moving back into our Paleolithic zone as we evolve. This is who we are. We're Paleolithic people. And then when you're down and you say, my GKI is like, wow, it's 5. It's really doing good. Now I want to kill cancer cells and I need to get 2.0 or below. Then you do water only fasting and you jump into water only fasting. And now the body has already acclimated itself to approach this special zone. Then when you're in water only fasting, your GKI will get below 2, sometimes below 1. Then you come in with the parasite medications and some other these touching glutamine targeting drugs, and you just blast the hell out of these tumor cells. Man, they get cold cocked because they can't handle this. This is not the environment that makes them happy, that keeps them growing. You're actually strangling and starving them to death. But the rest of the body is getting healthy, burning the ketones and fatty acids. It's just we evolved to burn ketones and fatty acids. The brain can switch from glucose to not fatty acids. The brain switches to ketones, but the muscles can burn fatty acids. The heart can burn fatty acids. The liver will take the fatty acids and make ketone bodies out of it. This is who we are. We're just going back to our Paleolithic period by knowing what to do and how to do it. But now we have a quantitative measure to allow us to know to do this. So it's not a mystery. So people say, "Oh, I'm on ketosis. How did you measure your GK?" No. Well, how do you know? Well, I'm guessing. Well,
You shouldn't guess. Even the urine strips are not accurate.
no, they're not, because if you take a little, if you're in good ketosis and you take a little bit of carb, you start peeing out your ketones. You look on the strip and say, "Wow, look at the ketosis I'm in," and you get misinformation. It's blood. You got to do it in the blood. And once we have all these technologies at our hands, oh yeah, we're going to drop the kid. We're never going to get rid of cancer. We're never going to get rid of chronic diseases. But at least we have the choice and the know-how now to determine whether or not I'm at risk. I've been in a risky environment, and some people don't care. There's always the guy who doesn't care, and that's what we found with our Greek study with the brain cancer. Some people said, "Well, I had radiation, chemo, and I had all this stuff, and I think that should be good enough, and I don't need to do any keto." Well, he's dead. He didn't make it. Some of those guys didn't. The ones who didn't hang on, they all died early, just like most of the people. But the guys that ate the salmon and the olive oils they lasted over 3 years. Let's give me a break. One guy's out 20 months. Pablo was out 10 years. 122 months, dying from a cerebral hemorrhage. But it shows you this works. This can work. People just need to know what to do and how to do it, and be helped by a knowledgeable physician, somebody that will give them a pat on the back and say, good going, and then we can give you a little bit of this and a little bit of that, keep you on that plane, and we can manage you and bring you out of this state of unhealth. But they're not getting that. It's being told, oh, this is nuts. No evidence to support this. So there's a lot of misinformation. And then you get all the guys that are saying, oh, this supplement, that supplement, oh, do this and do that. These guys don't know anything. They're not the ones in the lab.
So do you think that any supplements work for cancer or they don't?
I know I'm not against supplements that have no function, because it makes you feel good. It's a placebo thing. But some of these supplements can actually make a bad situation worse by some guy saying something. I don't want to go through like what supplement is good and what's not good. But these guys are charlatans, quacks. But on the other hand, you take a sick person and irradiate it and poison them. I mean, that's also quackery in my mind. It's just substantiated by the system. This is it's. I mean, in 100 years, we're going to look back and say, "What the hell did we do to these poor people? Why did we brutalize them like this? Didn't we know that you could get the job done without having to do this?" But it's going to take a while for the system to adjust and the people to understand. And we just keep publishing the papers, and more trials will come out, and GKRs will be used, and people will know what to do and how to do it. It's just that simple.
Okay, last question for you. You mentioned that people like to eat the bread, the pizza, and all the rest of it. What do you think is a worse food or foods that cause cancer?
Well, I don't want to say cause cancer. I want to say put you at risk for mitochondrial dysfunction. That's the key. What causes cancer? Mitochondrial oxphos insufficiency coupled to a substrate level phosphorylation. Whether you get that from a viral infection, from radiation, from poor sleep, from carcinogens, all of those things. Um, Now, if you have cancer and you eat foods that are loaded with highly processed carbs, you're going to make the cancer cells are going to love it. They're going to grow faster. We did one of the first studies in mice where we showed that you could actually accelerate or reduce the speed of dysregulated cell growth, directly measuring blood sugar. It's the higher the sugar, the faster the cancer cells grow, and this now has been shown for colon, breast cancer humans. You want to get your cancer to grow fast. You got to get your blood sugar up. You really have to work hard. Now, if that means you eat pizzas and donuts every night, and chocolate bars and ice cream, whatever has the highest level of highly processed carbs will make your cancer grow fast. Um, uh, and 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 this has already been shown in the clinic. Those folks that have higher blood sugar levels don't live as long as the people who have lower blood sugars. So 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 we know that reducing your blood sugar, and doesn't make any sense because some of these cancer patients they have fatigue, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. They're losing weight because they've been poisoned and irradiated. So we call that pathological weight loss. So in order to gain the weight, they give you Ensure and donuts and pizzas and they give you all this. This is nuts. This is nuts. What are these people doing? Oh, we have to keep the weight on. Well, why did he lose weight? Oh, because we poisoned the guy. Well, who doesn't lose weight when you're poisoned? Go and take some of the chemo. You want to lose weight? Take chemo. Vomiting, diarrhea, fatigue, nausea. You can't gain weight when you have this kind of a feeling. So we're going to give you now sugary diet foods to gain your weight back. This is nuts. This is crazy, man. This is like nuts. People will come to know in the years, they say, whoa, wow, who are the crazy people doing this stuff? So all we have to do is target the glucose and glutamine and transition the body to nutritional ketosis. And you can hammer these tumor cells without going bald. without having your gums bleeding, without sitting on the toilet all day long, without can't get out of bed because you feel so bad. You don't have to have any of this stuff.
What do you think about early tests to test for cancer? Is that valid? Is that good? Like mammograms? Because they talk about the risk associated with the radiation of all these early screening.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. They always say, colon cancer, colon cancer. We got to have colonoscopies and all this stuff. Colon cancer is increasing all the time, even if you have colonoscopy. I don't know what's going on with that stuff. All I know is it's really hard to get cancer if you have a low GKI. So and if you are detected to have cancer, uh, I'm not telling I'm not a physician. I can't tell anybody what to do or what not to do. All I can do is share the scientific information with them. But I would never use a biopsy or any of this stuff because you run the risk of spreading the tumor cells around the body. I would like to know what non-invasive imaging technology could you use to say you have a lesion that looks like it could be cancer, but we can't know until we do a biopsy. Well, let's just assume it is without doing the biopsy, and let's just hammer the hell out of it using metabolic therapy and then see what happens to it. Okay. Oh, wow, it shrunk. In some cases, it might go away. Well, why would you stick something that's no longer there? And then if it doesn't go away, well, why don't we consider a surgical procedure to see if we can just get rid of it? Or a dose of radiation in an area of the body which is very hard to surgically get to, but it's now shrunken. It's not the same as it was when it was first detected. Now we may be able to use radiation as a curative procedure, surgery as a curative procedure, and we may not need to use much chemo. And if we had to use chemo, we might use just a tiny bit of it just to see if we can kill a few cells off. Or immunotherapy after the tumor is shrunk and there's only a few small, we might come in with a small dose of immunotherapy. So again, we have all the tools needed right now to manage cancer effectively if we know how to use them in terms of what the nature of the biology of the problem is. And that's what we do. So yeah, this is going to happen. I have no doubt about it. You know why? It works.
So, if somebody is listening to this, because I know my cousin, so my aunt, she has active cancer, and I think I reached out to you because they wanted to get help from the doctors in your clinic. So, if somebody wants to do this metabolic therapy, how do they do it if they can't go to Istanbul, Turkey?
Well, I mean, this is the great tragedy right now. We know what to do and we know how to do it, but the patient themselves can't be the only participant. Metabolic therapy requires a tremendous input and activity on the part of the patient. Some patients don't even want to be bothered, and it requires some level of scientific literacy if you want to survive. And a lot of neither the physicians nor the patients have the scientific literacy to work together as a team. You have to have the caregivers. They must be knowledgeable and understand the science that we are producing, and we have written very comprehensive treatment protocols for physicians to become educated to help their patients. But the patient must also be knowledgeable. So I don't know. I never had a. Well, then you put your soul, your existence at risk. You better wise up quick, otherwise you're going to be part of the planet. So you have to if those people are motivated enough to want to know about this stuff, but they need somebody to help explain this to them. And the physician, if the physician thinks cancer is a genetic disease, he's not the right guy to be explaining this to them. So they have to be educated as well. So the hospitals, the caretakers must be educated. You go to a hospital, man, they get the worst kind of food there they give into these poor people. It's just terrible, right? It's just unbelievable. So, and the nutritionists are giving you Ensure and candy to make your weight gain in the hospital. It's like, what's going on? Because we've lost an understanding of who we are as a species, where we came from, where did our biology come from, how did we evolve, how did we become who we are today, and it all goes back to biochemistry, evolutionary biology, and then we can manage these diseases. We shouldn't allow ignorance to stand in our way because we can do it, and people just have to be shown what to do and how to do it, and that's what's going to happen.
And they can do this at home, like even if you want to prevent it with the GKI index, it's really, really easy. People just need to like take a bit of action.
Yeah, but you have to realize that as an impulsive species, we can sometimes overdo things and put ourselves at risk, going overboard on some of these things, thereby throwing you out of a healthy zone. Thinking you're doing good when you're not, or pounding down a supplement that somebody told you is good and it's not working. So again, you need knowledgeable caregivers that will tell you, no, don't do that. Stay on this. Do because right now it's like the Wild West. Oh, this guy, he said to eat dried toads, and this guy over here said to drink goat's urine. And oh yeah, I'm going to drink goat's urine now. Get rid of my. It's true. I have papers showing this stuff. Yeah, people have no scientific literacy. A lot of them are functionally illiterate. You've got to work with the masses to help educate them, and the physicians that are treating them.
That's the thing, like, if you're sick in this healthcare system, it's pretty hard because it's pretty hard to find a physician that will understand the disease and where it comes from. People aren't like you, Professor Seyfried.
Yeah, but they should be trained in medical schools to know this. And when they go through no, they're told it's a genetic disease.
I know, but, like, even when people have a blood test done and you go see a traditional doctor and they'll just, because I do a ketogenic diet, the number one thing that they're gonna say is my B12 is too high, cholesterol is too high. I'm just like, "Are you kidding? Can we, like, get over this LDL and cholesterol and all these different things?" They don't get it.
Well, we used in the mice, we found it's triglycerides, is the key.
My triglycerides are so low. That's the thing.
You're not 400 pounds, your eyes squeezed shut, with a GKI of 500. You need a wheelchair to get around. You're not unhealthy. Okay, the guy sitting in the wheelchair at 45 years old, weighing 400 pounds, with a GKI of 600. Now he's not healthy. But that's what we're seeing all over the world. We're starting to see this, and then you pound them full of pills, take this and then, rather than, and now we have all these weight loss things. What is it? Opdivo, Jardiance, and all this, and nobody knows what the hell's going to happen to people taking that stuff for 12 or 14 years. All of a sudden, your body is completely different. Get off the pills, and all of a sudden, everything explodes back at you again. You know, but that's the quick and easy way. That's who we are as well. We don't want any inconvenience or discomfort. We just want a quick fix, a pill. I take this pill. So I said with ketogenic metabolic therapy, yeah, take this pill with a cup of water twice a day, and that's all you take. This tiny little pill with a cup of water for 3 weeks, no food. All of a sudden, wow, that pill really works, doesn't it?
But it's hard. Professor Seyfried, thank you so much for your time. I mean, I think the more and more that you do this, more and more people are hearing about the metabolic therapy, and it's going to change. Things change over time. It takes about a few decades, but it's going to change.
I know it takes two, but the sad thing is we have to sacrifice all these poor folks. In the United States is 1,700 a day, 70 an hour, dying from cancer. So that's the tragedy. It doesn't have to be this way.